solve. So all this problem asks us to do is to solve. It doesn't say anything else. So we need to recognize that it is a quadratic equation, and it's quadratic because of that little 2 exponent, a square, and we need to put this under the category of solving a quadratic equation. And when you solve a quadratic equation, you need to expect 2 answers, okay? Because there's a little 2 here that makes it quadratic. We're expecting 2 answers. Now, first step in solving a quadratic equation is set it equal to 0. So what am I going to do? I'll put a little smiley face because I want it equal to 0. And the next step is to factor. And when I factor this quadratic equation, I'm going to get 2 binomials that equal 0. Now, if you can go straight to the 2 binomials and you know how to factor, then that's great. You can skip this part over here, but I'm going to show you how I factor this. I have to use the AC method. It doesn't start with a 1. It starts with something bigger than a 1. So I will use the AC method. And A times C is 4 times 45. Get your calculator ready. So this is 180. Okay, and now I'm going to list all of my possible factors of 180. Any pair. So first we start with 1 and 180. Then 2 and 90, okay? And you can use your calculator for this. Just divide. 180 divided by 2 is 90. 180 divided by 3 is 60. 180 divided by 4 is 45. Not all of them are going to work. 180 divided by 5 is 36. 180 divided by 6 is 30. 180 divided by 7, 7 doesn't work. 180 divided by 8, 8 doesn't work. 180 divided by 9, 9 and 20. 10 and 18. 11 doesn't work, 12 does. 12 and 15. I try 13, I try 14, neither one of those work. I'm back to 15, so that's all my possibilities. Now I'm going to use one of these pairs to split up my middle term and then factor by grouping. So when I'm looking at these pairs, I'm asking which ones are going to subtract to give me 31. Okay, and it's right here, 5 and 36. So 5 times 36 gives me 180, and 5 minus 36 gives me a negative 31. Okay, let me rewrite this trinomial, and we will do our factoring over here. 4x squared minus 31x minus 45. Now what I'm doing is I'm splitting up the middle term. It's the opposite of foiling. You know, when you foil, you combine your outer plus your inner. Well, this is like splitting up for an outer and an inner. This was a negative 31x right here, and it's going to be plus 5x minus 36x. Okay, that gives me a negative 31x, right? Yes. All right, drop down your 4x squared and drop down your minus 45. So now it's factored by grouping. Okay, and you know that I use the Spider-Man colors of blue and red. And when I look at the blue group, I take out what's in common. And the only thing I can take out here is an x. So I'm left with 4x plus 5. I need to drop down this sign, minus. And then what can I take out of the red group? 36x minus 45. What goes into both of those? Is that 9? Yeah, 9. So I'm going to take out a negative 9. I will be left with 4x plus 9. Sorry, 5. 9 goes into 45 5 times. 4x plus 5. Right, because I'm taking out a negative from a negative, it leaves me with the positive. All right, now, am I happy? Yes, I am, because this and this are the same thing. So when I take this and I factor it out in front, you could see I'll be left with x minus 9. All right, so let's do that. 4x plus 5, and then x minus 9. Okay, so I have factored this trinomial. So let's go back here and let's plug it in where it belongs. Back to the quadratic equation. I set it equal to 0, I factor completely. Next step, I set all of my factors equal to 0, because if this is 0, 0 times anything is 0, and if this is 0, anything times 0 is 0. So I set both of my factors equal to 0. 4x plus 5 equals 0. X minus 9 equals 0. And now I solve both of these linear equations now. See, they're linear because it's x to the first. So the one on the left, to get the x by itself, I subtract 5 from both sides. 4x will equal 0 minus 5 is negative 5. And then divide both sides by 4. So x equals negative 5 over 4. That is one of my answers. Now on the right-hand side, well, this side's a lot easier. All I have to do is add 9 to both sides. That will leave my x by itself. X equals 9. Those are my two answers. In a computer, you're probably going to have to put your answers in and separate it by a comma. Doesn't matter which one of these two goes first. And that's it. So you have to recognize this as a quadratic equation because of the square. You need to factor this, and in this case, because it doesn't start with 1, it's AC method. So I came over here and I factored over here. Once you factor, you set both of your factors equal to 0, and then you solve both of these to get your two answers.